So let's talk about ovulation now. Ovulation is the process by which Graafian follicle ruptures with consequent discharge of ovum into the abdominal cavity. This ovum is going to be discharged from all these granulosa cells and it's going to rupture. Okay? So what happens in there, this is all of this process is going to be influenced by luteinizing hormone. So ovulation occurs on 14th day of menstrual cycle in the normal cycle of 28 days, and the ovum enters the fallopian tube. And now we're going to talk about, this is going to be influenced by LH as I told you earlier. So now we're going to talk about the process of ovulation. Well, the mechanism of ovulation is not exactly known, but still we're gonna talk about the process. Well, the mechanism of ovulation is not clearly known, and the process we're going to discuss it over on later chapters, but I must let you go through the stages of ovulation. So what happens in the first stage of ovulation is that the rupture of Graafian follicle takes place at stigma. When this rupture is going to occur, the follicular fluid is going to be ooze out. This follicular fluid is going to ooze out. Definitely there's a rupture over here, so it's going to get out of it. So after this fluid oozing out, all the layer is going to be ruptured and the germ hillock is freed from the wall. So after that, ovum is expelled into the abdominal cavity. It's going to go out of it. It's going to go to the abdominal cavity along with some amount of fluid and granulosa cells as well. So from that abdominal cavity, the ovum enters the fallopian tube through the fimbriated ends. The ovum is going to get out and then get attached towards the fallopian tube where it waits for the fertilization. And other details will be discussed in the next lecture of ovulation, in which we are going to specifically talk about the process of ovulation. But for now, we're just gonna stick to the stages in which the rupture of Graafian follicle occurs and the follicular fluid was oozed out and the germ hillock was freed and the ovum was gotten out of the system. So ovum is a haploid before or during the ovulation, but by the formation of the polar bodies after ovulation, the ovum is viable for 24 to 48 minutes. So it must be fertilized at that time, and when it's going to be passed over fallopian tube, it must be fertilized at that time. And if it does not fertilize, the ovum is going to degenerate. But if the fertilization occurs, the fertilized ovum is going to be called as a zygote, and the zygote moves from the fallopian tube and reaches the uterus on 3rd day of ovulation. And then it is going to be implanted in the uterine wall on 6th to 7th day. So that was all about the ovulation and all of its process. Now we should talk about how this process or whole of these stages are regulated. So what happens is that, of course, GnRH and FSH are involved, but specifically LH is really important here for ovulation. Without LH or luteinizing hormone, there is no ovulation, and even the large quantity of FSH is secreted. If there is no LH, even there are so much quantities of follicular stimulating hormones are going to excrete, there is no ovulation going to occur. Okay, so keep that in mind. So in the last section of proliferative phase, we just discussed that estrogen was the main culprit over there, and here luteinizing hormone acts as a main culprit. What happens next is the luteal surge, and the luteal surge is that the need for excessive secretion of luteinizing hormone for ovulation is known as ovulatory surge or luteal surge, we're going to say. And prior to ovulation, a large quantity of LH is secreted due to positive feedback effect of estrogen on GnRH, as we just mentioned in the last section. The main culprit over here is the luteinizing hormone that is going to cause luteal surge, and this luteinizing hormone is going to maintain all of the ovulation process. But don't worry, we're gonna do another lecture on ovulation in which we are specifically gonna highlight about the process of ovulation. So that's all for now in the menstrual cycle. So next we're going to talk about the luteal phase and its regulation. So stick around.